Bandidos, I'm gonna give you a full rundown on all the ways in year 5 to never reload your weapon in The Division 2. Let's do it. Never reloading your weapon is the ultimate build fantasy in The Division 2. Surprisingly, there are many ways to do it. Variations range from exotics to talents and build combos. Today I'm going to showcase all your options, rate them, and discuss the nuances of each. I ranked all the options based on accessibility of the no reload, necessity, impact on PvE performance, and the broadness of application. There's going to be some stuff you agree with, a lot you might disagree with, but before you leave your comment and superior suggestions, let me just say,
Monkey, baby.
So these are the Ninja Bike knee pads, and what a cool idea. So just by doing parkour or cover to cover, you're not only gonna get bonus armor, but you're gonna get a free reload to your weapon, whatever one is in hand. The downside is it doesn't really play out at all in this game. You basically have to constantly be on the move in order for this to make sense. Otherwise, it just kind of ends up being this sometimes on accident, I do a free reload kind of thing. And who wants that on their build when you could run a better exotic? Like, I don't know, the Coyote Mask, or run the Fox's Prayer knee pads there instead. No, and I'm here trying to make it happen. I really am. So I've paired it up with the Lady Death. And so you think it'd be a good combo because the Lady Death only has 35 rounds. It's an extremely small mag, but on kill, it gives you a boost of speed. So that should, in theory, make it even easier to get to that parkour point, to jump over something, to go from A to B and get that free reload. The problem is that on this particular gun and so many others, the reload is faster than the inconvenience of having to do a cover to cover or go run over there to jump over something wherever there is. Those parkour points just seem to be out of your way or not there when you actually need them. And in PvE content, especially in control points, when it's 1 versus like 50, you can find yourself cornered and not able to push forward without getting yourself killed. Like by doing a cover to cover movement, for example. With most of the weapons that you're running and gunning with averaging between 1.4 and about 2 seconds on reload, the inconvenience of having to go find something to jump over, it's just not it. But in theory, you would think these would be magic and that they would work all the time, but there's just too many situations where it just doesn't. I mean, here I am fighting all these guys and it's enemy after enemy, and each enemy I have to reload, and I'm not gonna parkour after each enemy. There's nothing to parkour on. And it's so, as much as I like the idea of these knee pads, they never work out, and I've been trying for years. And trust me, there are moments when this actually works, but it's so few and far in between, it just doesn't really ever come down to a piece that I want on my build. So this is gonna be really low on the totem of no reload build options. Next up is the Chatterbox. And the Chatterbox is acquired through a quest where you have to collect the parts to assemble it. This SMG comes with a talent called Incessant Chatter. So when you reload, rate of fire is increased by 20% for each enemy within 15 meters for the duration of that magazine, and that stacks 5 times for a 100% increase in fire, which will push your RPMs to 1400, which is pretty darn amazing right there. The reload time is 1.4 seconds, making it one of the best reload times really in the game, even for SMGs. There's a detail at the bottom of the talent that says kills refresh 50% of your magazine. And the cool thing is that's not gonna pull ammo from your reserves. That's its own ammo supply. So it's infinite. Really helpful when you're standing in front of big groups of enemies where you can kill them all back to back, which is basically only gonna take half a mag anyways, and it's just gonna keep refilling that. So let me show you how it works. So the downsides are that the weapon's reload time at 1.4 seconds is already fast, and so the free reload isn't absolutely essential to your survivability or to your performance. It sort of just plays out as a nice perk to have. The other thing is a lot of people like to run the Chatterbox with the Hunter's Fury gear set, and I get it. It makes a ton of sense. The problem is that Hunter's Fury kicks in a debuff that disorients enemies when you get that kill, and that's when that free reload is happening. But that's also your opportunity to reload for free thanks to the Hunter's Fury set that is buying you time to do so. So it kind of plays out equally whether you had the free reload or not, because the results are just going to be the same in that situation. Otherwise, in a good 50 to 75% of the encounters that you have in regular open world heroic type content, there's so much time in between kills to reload that it's just not imperative to have that feature. However, it is a nice feature to have and something I wish we'd see on more weapons. The other thing is that the Chatterbox isn't that strong, and it could really use a damage buff. Now, I get that RPMs are a DPS buff, but I find myself in positions where I don't really have that thing maxed out. I keep coming across like 1 to 3 enemies at a time. That being said, even if I get the half reload, when I come across a tankier target, because the weapon isn't quite strong enough, I find myself having to reload anyways, because those 30 rounds or half the mag isn't enough to get the job done. And that means this weapon is going to be increasingly difficult to use the more people you have on your team. And that's because the enemy's health pool is going to scale upwards, making that half mag refunded to you on kill less effective, meaning more manual reloads in between kills. Next up is a gear set, and it's also a pairing that I'll be showcasing here. So it's hot shot, and you need to run all 4 pieces so you can get the talent headache. So by the time you get 3 consecutive headshots, from that point forward, it's going to automatically refill your magazine. So as you can see at the very bottom of the first paragraph, it says 3rd consecutive headshot will refill the magazine, and from the 4th headshot forward, agents will get all 3 bonuses, including that free reload. The cool thing about the reload is that it doesn't pull from your ammo reserves either, and that's a good thing for snipers that usually don't come with a bunch of extra ammo. The downside of the talent is that if you miss a consecutive headshot, it'll reset the cycle, and then you have to get 3 more headshots in order to get that buff again. However, if you run the backpack, it's going to give you a free miss. So that's key to getting the most of this. And then also the second part of it is running determined. And after killing an enemy with the headshot, the deck shot landed on any enemy will be a guaranteed headshot. That means you can land shots on the body, still kill that enemy, and continue to get your automatic refill. So there's a bunch of other perks that this gear set gives you. Just keep in mind, this is a marksman rifle setup, so you're gonna have to run one of those. So you're gonna be wanting to watch my ammo here. So as you can see, we got 13 shots. So there's 1 miss. And as you can see, we got our 13 back. We got our 13 back. And again, remember, you're allowed 1 free miss with that backpack, and you still maintain your stacks. The downside is that most snipers are playing from cover, and there's time in between kills most of the time as you're looking for that next target to take on. It's not a big deal to reload there, and some of these rifles are single action reload. So a fraction of a second in order to just load up 1 more round, which is going to keep you from going empty. So is it absolutely vital that you have no reload on a sniper? No, but when you're on a killing spree, it is super great to have, because you can eliminate an entire control point in lickety split thanks to not having to squeeze in reloads and then lose that target who then runs behind cover or goes and hides or maybe jumps in your face. It can save your life, but most of us are getting along just fine without having a no reload option on our sniper. But it's worth saying that this is probably the easiest no reload to maintain of the bunch. And with that being the case, and without losing any damage or chain killing capabilities, the real question is, why not have a no reload option? So yeah, pretty easy. And we were able to maintain the buff throughout the entire control point for the most part. Hey Bandidos, the community we have built together wouldn't have been possible without you. So as a thank you for supporting my channel, I am bringing you the hookup on member perks, including even more Division 2 content and the celebrated gaming music playlists. If you're not part of Tux's Players Club, now is your chance. The Dread Edict is one of my favorites. It's actually one of my favorite exotics in the game. So it's all about the talent. It's called Full Stop. So shooting enemies builds stacks at a cap of 20. Headshots grant 2 stacks. Each stack grants 2% weapon damage and 5% headshot damage. That's 40% weapon damage and 100% headshot damage. But at the bottom, you want to pay attention to that. It said headshot kills with Dread Edict restore all bullets in the magazine. This does not count as a reload. So that's free ammo. That's crazy. And your build's going to be super strong with this, pushing over 420% headshot damage. Because remember, the Dread Edict is going to give you another 100% plus 40% weapon damage. So you end up with a very strong build here. And yes, you can chain kill with this SVD. The secret to it, to get the free reload, is you only need 1 headshot kill every 10 rounds. That's actually easier than it sounds. Keep an eye on the ammo bar. You see that? So I got that refill. So every headshot kill is gonna give me a refill. So it's just a matter of leaning into that. And if you miss, it's not a big deal because you got 10 shots to do it. There it is. So it took me 2-3 shots to kill that person, but it didn't matter. The results are the same. Refill. and continue to chain kill. So SVDs are really fun. Obviously, I happen to like them, but they're not everybody's cup of tea. And that's because really, and it's not just an acquired taste thing, SVDs in the Division 2 are sort of difficult to use. They require a lot of weapon handling or a significant amount of weapon handling in order to make them stable because they bounce around a lot. And the idea is to throw out consecutive shots really fast. And if you don't have handling on the weapon, then each one of those shots is going to bounce the barrel all over the place, making it difficult to land those consecutive shots. Now, the real trouble is that the Division 2, the devs, they haven't given us enough ammo for the marksman class in order for us to throw out a bunch of consecutive shots that are missing. And so if it wasn't for this Dread Edict and its auto refill, then the SVD class itself would be basically useless. As a matter of fact, if you're running SVDs and not running the exotic, like if you're just using the standard SVD, then you're most likely better off with Lucky Shot. Again, because those missed shots you just can't afford because you don't have enough ammo. You get something like, what is it, 140, 150 rounds or something like that. And so if you're missing a lot of your shots or you're coming across a lot of tanky enemies where you're throwing in a lot of body shots in there, then you're going to end up running out of ammo. And that's basically worst case scenario. This SVD, this exotic, is actually very amazing and relatively easy to acquire that auto reload. Like I said, you have 10 shots to get it and it's easy to get the weapon handling you need. And because the SVDs are a crossover between rifles and snipers in the Division 2, because the rifle class is really good and snipers are basically OP in this game, SVDs, no matter how great they are, find themselves in an awkward place because with rifles, you can almost do the same thing. You can get a headshot build out of the 1886 to work pretty darn good. Now, it doesn't run a scope, there's that, but it's equally as devastating to the enemy and even more flexible, and it doesn't have ammo issues. There's that, and then you have the snipers, like whether you're using the SRS or any of the exotics or the White Death, that can take out enemies in one shot. That puts SVDs in that awkward place. So although they make sense because they're not meant to really compete with something like the White Death, they're meant to bridge the gap between rifles and marksman snipers, but because we have ammo issues, it makes it a difficult thing to do. This isn't going to be the strongest reload option. It's going to fall somewhere in the middle, but because it's the Dread Edict, it's going to be in the upper middle tiers here. And one I definitely recommend you try out if you're into snipers or rifle builds and you like going for them headshots. Now, this is one you may not be aware of or you forgot about it, and that's because it's exclusive to the pistols. It's called Salvage, and killing a target has a 70% chance to refill the magazine. So the bigger your mag, the better. That way you can completely avoid reloads. There's also a perfect version of this that gives you 5% better chance. However, it does require a lot more shots to get that kill, but it does come with a bigger mag. So I'm gonna try with the D50 and let you know what I think. Here we go, got it again. So the odds are in your favor. You just wanna select your shots, be a little bit selective there. Got it again. Good RNG, good for you. Didn't get it that time, but no worries. Got 7 more chances. Got it that time. So yeah, the odds are in your favor. Really good. Got it that time. So the objective, of course, isn't to get it every time, but just to skipping reloads altogether is pretty handy, right? And we got it again. So this one's relatively straightforward. It's very strong. You're chain killing, headshots. You got basically 8 rounds to do it, and you got that 70% chance. So it's just gonna happen unless you're just missing a ton, which if you have to reload, so be it. But what we're trying to do is showcase which are the best. And this one is pretty darn reliable. And pistols are really fun to run in this game. The downside is what your alternatives are, because Determined is out there, and that's a pretty good one as well. And it decreases your time to acquire targets targets, making you a faster, more effective killer. And with the reloads not being that bad on any one pistol anyways, it's not that big of a deal to have to reload. But it is a nice thing to have and does come in handy, except you are slowing down to acquire targets. So that's something you sort of have to juggle on what you would rather have. And for most, if your objective is to clear content as fast as possible, then I gotta say probably Determined would win. But this is right up there with it, because with this build, we don't need any armor on kill. We got bonus armor. We got everything we need, including power. So what else do we need? Well, Determined, and if it wasn't that, you know, not preservation. I don't need preservation, which is armor on kill. So the next thing after Determined would end up being an auto reload feature. Wouldn't it be cool if we had that with Determined? Pummel is really effective, important, and a classic for shotgun builds. 3 consecutive kills refills the magazine and grants 40% weapon damage for 10 seconds. So you're getting both a refill and more damage. But the refill is really critical on shotguns. Most classic shotguns have a very slow reload. This one has 2.4 seconds, for example. This is the M870, and that's after I put reload mods on. And they also have small mags, making it very critical to get extra rounds, especially because you're playing on these really close distances on the enemy. You're in the kill box, so reloads can actually get you killed, and that's where Pummel can save your life. There's also Perfect Pummel, and it's on a couple of different guns, including the Tsunami and the other one, which is the Super 90 Enforcer. Those both have the perfect version that only requires 2 consecutive kills. That's a lot easier, and if you have the Enforcer, boy, are you lucky. But here's the secret. I'm going to show you why the KSG shotgun is one of the best to pair up with Pummel. Now, on one hand, M870 is the strongest shotgun, but this one's right there behind it, nipping on its heels when it comes to damage. The RPMs are lower, and the most significant difference is that it actually has worse stability, meaning you probably have to get in a meter closer to get a clean shot with this one than you would with the M870. However, the secret is what makes this one so special is it has 12 rounds in the mag. So it makes the reload look bad, but it's actually not as bad as it seems. It's just that it has extra rounds. What makes it better than the M870? Well, here's the deal. The M870 is pretty good, and it's my favorite shotgun in the game, hands down, but it only has 5 rounds in the mag, and you have to get 3 kills with those 5 rounds to get Pummel activated. Now, you can reload in between, and that's usually what I do to get around the misses, because you do miss or accidentally clip enemies. That will require you to put out more than 1 shot to kill an enemy from time to time, and it happens more than you like, because enemies are always dancing around or whatever. So that means you get into situations where you get into full reloads with the M870, and then the next kill gets you Pummel, and then you don't need it. So you can kind of get off rhythm there. But the KSG shotgun has 12 rounds in the mag, so you can have a lot of misses. It's a lot more forgiving, and you rarely, if ever, would get yourself into I have to reload from empty scenario, because you have 12 rounds to get 3 kills. That means you can put out 4 shots per kill, but you don't need to because you got 1.4 million base damage, and this is a killer. Let me show you why. This has good and bad along with it, but the good is that it's extremely effective. It's on a weapon that absolutely needs it, whether you're running this, the Super 90, or the M870. They all have small mags relatively and horrible reload times, and so they all need that free reload. And it's an extremely reliable talent, Pummel. One of the downsides is that you can't switch weapons or you lose Pummel. The other downside is that shotguns are relatively difficult to use in this game. I would say that they're actually the most difficult to use in the game. Not shotguns in general, but the traditional shotguns. So the Scorpio is probably the easiest of them all to use, and there's a few others in that category as well. But the traditional shotguns are difficult. I mean, you have to be right up in their face, closer than SMGs. They shoot slower. They have horrible reloads and small mags. It's the trifecta of get yourself killed. They require a little bit more skill to use, and so that's the downside. However, it's an extremely effective talent and probably the meta talent for these types of shotguns. And it couldn't be more reliable or more powerful. So this one is a weapon talent combination, and it doesn't require any specific gear set, so go with what you like. But you can see my beautiful Snow Leopard GR9. You want it because it has a very large mag, 250 indeed, and that's because I'm running the 50 round pouch that comes from Gunner. So this one's all about the talent paired up with the size of the mag, so you need at least 200 rounds to make this work. And there's a few LMGs that come with that. So steady handed hits grant a stack of 1% accuracy and stability, so this thing is going to turn into a laser beam. And we're gonna love that. At 100 stacks, it consumes them to refill the magazine. So we have 250 rounds so that we have a little giveaway there. So we're basically aiming for 50% shots on target, give or take. And that's gonna ensure you actually get your auto reload and don't have to manually reload. Because as you can see, LMGs really could use the free reload. And this one's a ton of fun and it absolutely shreds. One of my favorite ways to run LMGs. So out of all the no reload builds you're gonna see today, this is probably the best one for the general player base. That's because it's practical. It's just point and shoot. Also because you have a great deal of flexibility of builds to put together with this combination of weapon and talent. You can go True Patriot, Striker, Heartbreaker, Ongoing Directive, Negotiators, you name it. It works in group, solo, legendary, and heroic. And I feel like it's really appropriate to compare this to the Bullet King. And there are some things that you're gonna notice when running this versus the Bullet King. For one, the Bullet King has actually really bad handling. That weapon sways all over the place. And with this one, you have 100% accuracy and stability that stacks up. That's also giving you that free reload. And thus, it's replenishing ammo, not from your ammo reserves. And you'll see in this gameplay that my ammo is in really good position. I end this checkpoint with full ammo. And because of that, it's doing better than what the Bullet King can do. Now, the Bullet King does also replenish your allies' ammo too, to some degree. The GR9 has an 8x scope. You can actually run this with focus and get some mega damage out of it. And also because it does such a good job at landing targets, even the Striker chest piece is a real deal option for this build. And if you're looking for one that's really easy to apply for all content, this is probably the one for you. And of course, this video wouldn't be complete without the Bullet King. This golden bad boy is a true no reload weapon. Bullet hell. This weapon never needs to be reloaded. For every 100 bullets that hit an enemy, replenish some ammo to you and your allies' reserves. It's that easy. Point and shoot. So if you run the Bullet King right after you run something like the GR9, you are going to notice the differences. For one, the weapon handling at its base is not as satisfactory as the GR9. So the Bullet King, I think you're better off adding some sort of weapon handling, and that's what I did on this build. So I'm actually running Brace, and you're playing from cover anyways. It just doesn't have the burst to really run and gun, and I'm running Striker, so it's got mega damage elsewhere. But Brace, I feel like, is really essential. Otherwise, you're missing a lot of shots. And a good way to notice whether you're landing them or not, because it looks like you're landing lots of shots, but you're not. And a good way to tell is actually to keep an eye on your Striker's stack meter, that little green bar. That kind of gives you a good idea. Now, you should be noticing I'm landing a lot of them because I'm running a pretty good chest talent here that's giving me lots of weapon handling, 50%. Plus, I'm running Gunner, which is another 10%, plus Striker, which is another 15%. So we got lots of weapon handling here. The downside of running all that weapon handling with the Bullet King is that weapon handling includes reload speed. So we have 75% weapon handling. That would be 75% reduction in reload speed. So we're not getting a benefit of that. So if we were actually reloading this weapon, it would be lightning fast anyways because of all the weapon handling we have to run on it because of its poor stability. So that sort of makes the weapon just sort of all right. Now, by all means, try running this LMG without a handling talent of sorts. And keep an eye on those Striker stacks if you decide to run it that way. You will notice you are missing a lot, unless you're just in the enemy's face. So I realized that when I was running this LMG, like the optimal range for it when it comes to landing a high percentage of shots was really like inside 15 meters. And outside of that, it was very poor. And again, you have a way to track that by tracking your stacks. And you will notice that it doesn't stack very well, which means you're missing a lot of shots beyond 15 meters because of this weapon just swaying all over the place. So the weapon, in a funny way, is a contradiction. Its optimal range being inside 15 meters, but it doesn't have the burst to stay there and survive, really. So part of me thinks that the Bullet King is a really good secondary weapon or niche weapon. And so what ends up happening when you run the Bullet King is it really slows you down, and you'll see some of that in the gameplay because you're sitting there waiting for the enemy to come back out of cover, and sometimes they just don't. You can just wave your Bullet King in their general direction and they get suppressed, but enough times that you're gonna notice it. And so that's sort of a bummer for me, but that's what the weapon does. And that's actually where I've used the Bullet King in the past, was in the Iron Horse raid where you need to suppress the snipers. That was its special ability, and the only time I actually use this weapon, I'll be honest with you. But we did create a couple of cool builds for it that I will feature in future videos so that you guys have one, because you need to have at least one good build for every exotic. That's what I believe, and I'm gonna deliver that to you for the Bullet King. But this is the truest to form no reload weapon in the game. It's the only one that really has it fully built in. The same options would apply to the Bullet King as the GR9 build. You could run the Negotiators, Strikers, Heartbreaker, Umbra. We've actually run them all and they all feel good. So it just depends on what you're looking for. And for me, I feel like it's handling and power. So Strikers is pretty good, but Negotiators is also really tactical for this particular LMG, especially if you're gonna run it in Legendary. So it just depends, you know, do you wanna be an independent damage dealer or do you wanna support the team? All are good options, including True Patriot, something to think about. So there you have it, 8 ways to never reload in the Division 2. Let me know which is your favorite and if there are any you would rate differently. Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is TuxedoBandido and this was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
Follow me.
I get it.